So I'm DJ Ray. I've been a DJ for quite a while. I've worked at some of the biggest nightclubs in Toronto over the years. Been involved in DJing for quite a while. I've been recently doing a lot of different posts and whatnot, and tonight is actually the debut of my first live TikTok. So starting tonight, every Tuesday night at 8 p.m., I'm going to be doing a different spotlight on a different area of music, whether it's from the 1940s or 2025, anywhere in between, different topics. Last week I did or about a week and a half ago, I did my first test TikTok live, and that was based on the greatest decades of music. I ended up determining that the 70s was the best, but that was just a test. Tonight's the debut, and tonight's topic will be the greatest rock frontmen of all time. So just to be specific, when I say the greatest rock frontmen, they have to be in a band. So if it's someone like Bruce Springsteen or, Phil Collins was in a band, but had a better career as a solo artist. So these are frontmen for bands, and I'm going to do basically my top 20 tonight. So I hope you enjoy it, and we're going to start off with number 20. But just before I do that, I want to let you know how I'm scoring these artists, because you might be a little surprised by my top 5, top 10. And I'm basing it on 4 things. Number 1, vocals. How good their vocals are, I give 4 out of 10 for that. Their style, I give 2. The band they play for, I give another 2. How great the band is, and how long, the longevity of the band, how long they were around for and whatnot. For example, Kurt Cobain wouldn't be too high from Nirvana because he was only around for about a few years, 4 or 5 years, I think, something like that, 6 years. So anyway, let's get started. At number 20 all time, in my opinion, again, this is just my opinion from years of DJing and dealing with music and whatnot, I'd have to go with Pearl Jam's Eddie Vedder. Okay, I'm not too sure how familiar you guys are with Eddie Vedder, but he was the frontman for Pearl Jam, and many consider him really the one who started grunge music from out of Seattle. I don't know if I agree with that. I kind of think, there's other artists that came as well, like Stone Temple Pilots, for instance. They were just a little after Pearl Jam, but even bands like Red Hot Chili Peppers, I mean, they had a real grunge sound in the late 80s. So I don't know that that's true, but I guess everybody can't be wrong. So many consider Pearl Jam the architects of the Seattle grunge scene. So Eddie Vedder, definitely I would go with at my number 20 spot. His vocals worked pretty clean. He had a cool style. Band was great, obviously, and they lasted. So number 19 wasn't really one of the best vocalists. I think he was more of a poet than an actual singer. But Jim Morrison, I mean, hey, you got to give him some dues. I mean, his vocals were, I wouldn't put them at the top, but just vocals, but his style was off the charts. His band was one of the coolest of all time. And yeah, they didn't last too long either. I think they disbanded, obviously, after Jim Morris committed suicide. It was over. So, but that's why he's so low, but he's still got to make my top 20. So number 19, I'm going to go with Jim Morrison. Hi, Ambrose. Hi, Nana Banana. Hi, Sarah. Who else do we got here? Jugra, I hope I said that right. How you doing? Great. Okay, so let me see what we got here. One new message. Oh, hi, Sarah. Now I know the comments were good. Okay, we're continuing with the greatest rock frontman of all time. So far, I've mentioned Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam, Jim Morrison from The Doors, My next spot, I'd have to go with John Fogerty, lead singer of Creedence Clearwater Revival from the late 60s, early 70s. This band doesn't get enough credit, Creedence Clearwater Revival, let's just say CCR. They had, in such a short span, like the late 60s to the very early 70s, numerous hits. He had a very unique voice. And they were probably the kings of Southern rock, if you really think about it. I mean, I'm sure Lynyrd Skynyrd in the early 70s really were inspired by them. So John Fogerty, CCR, my number 18 all-time greatest rock frontman. This next one might surprise you a little bit because they were a little off the grid a bit. But I've got to say, number 17 is Robert Smith from The Cure. I mean, vocals were crazy, very unique. Style, do I need to say anymore? I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Robert Smith too much, but The Cure wasn't really a charting band, but they had a great following, and yeah, Robert Smith definitely belongs in here at number 17. If you guys have any thoughts on any of my picks so far, feel free to chime in. Next, I remember when this band came out, late 80s, early 90s, I think it was, early 90s. They actually compared them to the Beatles, and I don't know how they got that comparison, because they're nothing like the Beatles, in my opinion, but there's not even four of them, you know, well, backup session players, but it's just Oasis, you know, Liam Gallagher, brother Noel Gallagher, they were actually compared to the Beatles in the early 90s, and that's so far from the truth, but regardless, Oasis was a phenomenal band. They were definitely one of the best of the 90s, and Liam Gallagher was the reason for that, in my opinion. You know, although, you know, all his problems with his brother Noel and stuff over the years, they just couldn't get their act together. I believe, if memory serves correct, they're going to be, don't quote me on this, but I sense a reunion happening. So Liam Gallagher, number 16 for sure. At number 15, I'm going to have to go with Anthony Kiedis of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, lead singer. I don't think this guy gets enough credit. I mean, when you think of grunge music, and we were just talking a minute ago about Eddie Vedder and, you know, Scott Weiland and some of the other pioneers of grunge music, but if you think about the Red Hot Chili Peppers, weren't they really the original grunge band? I mean, they came out in the 80s, and, you know, really good longevity, very cool band. I mean, one of the coolest bass players with Flea. I mean, so Anthony Kiedis, Red Hot Chili Peppers, lots of songs, lots of energy. He's going to come in at number 15 of my greatest rock frontmen of all time. Number 14, you guys know this guy, and very unique vocals. Guns N' Roses, Axl Rose would be at number 14. I remember one memory back in 1986 or 7, I was DJing in a club, and a couple girls came up to me and asked if I would play Sweet Child of Mine. Must have been 87 then, because Welcome to the Jungle was their first release off that album, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, aging and trying to remember things, and trying to go raw. Sometimes you forget. Anyway, Axl Rose, so they asked me if I'd play Sweet Child of Mine, and I'm like, are you kidding me? It was like a dance club, a nightclub, so no. And then weirdly, I don't know if they went and asked somebody to ask me, somebody else came up and everything. Finally, I broke down, I played Sweet Child of Mine, and the place went nuts. From that point on, I had never played any rock before that when I was DJing. Although I loved rock, I never played it, except for maybe You Shook Me All Night Long by AC/DC, standard. I never played it in the clubs, any kind of rock. But after that reception from Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses, so, I mean, yeah, Axl Rose deserves to be at number 14, even though he's got a little bit of issues on the side, but we won't get into that. Number 13, you also know this guy, John Bon Jovi. I mean, what can you say about John Bon Jovi? I mean, his band, they came out in the early 80s, hit after hit after hit through the 80s, hit after hit in the 90s, and even started off the early 2000s. So, I mean, definitely had longevity, definitely had solid vocals. Maybe not the highest of everyone on this chart, but solid. Great band, and they lasted long. So John Bon Jovi is definitely next on my list here. Which takes me to my number 12 selection of the greatest rock men of all time. Let's take a drink before that. David Lee Roth of Van Halen. Now, there was two singers in Van Halen, actually, Sammy Hagar too, and rock enthusiasts usually tend to lean towards picking Sammy Hagar, and the girls tend to, I find, lean towards David Lee Roth. The thing is, as great a performer as both of those guys were, David Lee Roth had some pretty good vocals. His style was, what can I say? And the band, Van Halen, one of the best of all time, and they lasted a long time. I have to give David Lee Roth marks for that and put him at number 12. So David Lee Roth of Van Halen at number 12. Just outside the top 10, you guys know John Lennon, Beatles. There's a guy that you might recall. Believe it or not, the Beatles didn't really have a lot of years together. I mean, I think they ended kind of disbanding around 71 or something like that. And from that point on, all the Beatles, all four of them went on to solo careers. John Lennon, second to none, from the Fab Four. He had a great 70s, and unfortunately, he was assassinated. Mark David Chapman, I believe, assassinated him in 1980, and it's really sad. It was a sad day. I actually remember. He would have been even higher on the list, but he was taken out, and unfortunately, that's how it is. John Lennon, number 11. Okay, my top 10. We're gonna get to the best rock frontman of all time. Okay, number 10, I'm gonna go with Steve Perry of Journey. The only reason Steve Perry isn't even higher than 10, because that guy can sing the phone book, is the fact that he wasn't the only lead singer of Journey. So, although he was definitely the greatest and was during the biggest part of Journey when they had their greatest songs and their greatest hits, but he was in and out sort of thing. But as far as vocals, he gets a 4 out of 4. As far as style, decent. His band hits, but he was in and out sort of thing. But as far as vocals, he gets a 4 out of 4. As far as style, decent. His band, and Van Halen, as I was saying, and bands like Iron Maiden and stuff like that. And here I liked Kiss, right? So I always had a thing for Kiss from when I was a little boy. I think what it was at first was I was just astounded by their stage presence. But then when you hear Paul Stanley sing, to me, he's the epitome of a rock star. Just dances well, sings well, he's got a great look. So Paul Stanley, I'm sure some may disagree, but I got to put him at number 8 as the greatest rock man of all time. At number 7, this one might not surprise you so much. Part of the British invasion, Roger Daltrey from The Who. Now, basically, one second.
It's glitching out.
Is it now good?
Huh?
Is it good now? Sorry, guys. It just I didn't realize I was glitching out there, so my daughter just gave me a heads up. I guess everything's good now. Okay, so Roger Daltrey. One thing I have to say about this band, The Who, it's notable. It's not working. One sec, guys. I don't know what to do. Let's pause. paused here? How do I? One sec, guys. Sorry about that, guys. It was just glitching out, so I just had to... Emily, number 1 for you is Pearl Jam. I had them at number 20, but they made my list. But hey, I think a lot of people would agree with you on that. Yeah, if you want to tell me your number 1s, feel free to send them. I'm just looking through here to see if anybody else commented about their favorite. And in the meantime, I'll just continue on. Hopefully I don't glitch out again. So I was saying about The Who. Roger Daltrey is my number 7 all-time greatest rock frontman. At one point, I don't know if I got the story exactly right, so take it with a grain of salt, but I seem to recall Keith Moon suggesting to Led Zeppelin that they were going to the lead. And what that basically meant is that they were crap and they were never going to make it. But I think they had the last laugh on that one. Anyway, back to Roger Daltrey. This guy was like great vocals, cool style. He's a good looking guy. His band was amazing. They didn't really last that long. And if they would have lasted a bit longer, I might even put them higher. But at this point, I'd have to say Roger Daltrey is my number 7 choice. Number 6, Steven Tyler from Aerosmith. I'm kind of weird with vocals because I don't actually think Steven Tyler has a great voice, but he has such a unique voice, and he knows how to control it and make it work for him. I mean, Aerosmith's been around since the early 70s. Steven Tyler himself, he's had his issues, but I mean, he's really, stayed relevant. But back to, Frontmen. I mean, he could perform with anybody. So he was a great frontman. His vocals were decent. A great style. His band was amazing. They lasted long. So I put number 6, Steven Tyler. Okay, top 5. We're just talking about Led Zeppelin. How could you have a greatest frontman of all time episode without mentioning Robert Plant? I mean, Led Zeppelin, they were just such a unique band in the sense that they hardly charted at all. I mean, they weren't really for the populace. They were just, it's kind of like a bit of a cult at the beginning with Led Zeppelin. But man, what a legacy they left. And Robert Plant, talk about singing the phone book, and unique vocals. I mean, he could easily be the number 1. I'm sure many of you would pick Robert Plant as your number 1 frontman, but I got him at number 5. Number 4, Paul McCartney, the Beatles. Now, he might just be as a better songwriter even than he is a singer, but what an incredible voice. I mean, it's not a voice like Robert Plant or Robert Smith or any of them or whatnot, Steve Perry, but when Paul McCartney's singing, he's just got that soothing sound to his vocals. And, whether he was with the Beatles, or solo. And then he had a band that he started up after the Beatles called Wings. And I got to be honest, Wings is one of my favorite bands of all time, and they don't get any credit. I sometimes wonder if people even remember them. But Paul McCartney, just a class act all the way around, and certainly my number 4 choice for greatest rock frontman of all time. Number 3, I think some people will disagree with me on this one, but just think about it for a sec. Bono from U2, okay? Vocals, amazing. Style, amazing. U2, the band, was incredible, and their longevity was quite... So, I mean, this guy's almost perfect, but I got 2 higher than him, 2 other choices higher than him, but Bono definitely deserves to be at number 3 from U2. Hi, happy lad, howdy. How are you, Frankie? Good to see you. Thanks for coming out. Hope I didn't miss anybody here. Number 2. Okay, just like I said about Steven Tyler, I think this singer is in the same category. I don't really think he has the best vocals, but I'd be remiss not to put him right up there. I mean, Mick Jagger from the Rolling Stones, greatest rock band of all time, with the exception of the Beatles, maybe. I mean, you can't argue their longevity. You can't argue the amount of hits they had. You can't argue Mick Jagger's style. Maybe you can argue his vocals weren't as pristine as some, but you knew it was him when he sang. So he's my number 2 choice, Mick Jagger from the Rolling Stones. And my number 1 choice, like a little drum roll, I think you guys can guess it. Can anybody guess? Any of you guess who my number 1 is? I've said Mick Jagger, Bono, Paul McCartney, Robert Plant, Steven Tyler, etc., etc. Anybody guess my number 1? I'll give you a minute. Am I still cutting out here? Or was cutting out? Okay, no, I'm good now. Okay. You love Steven Tyler, Nana Banana. I see. What's your favorite song by Steven Tyler? I'll give you a sec. Hi, Natalie. Number 1. Freddie Mercury from Queen. What can you say about this guy? I mean, more unique than anybody on this list probably in his vocals. My God. Legendary. Band was legendary, and they would have lasted a lot longer if it wasn't for Freddie Mercury passing away in the early 90s from AIDS. Yeah, so there you have it. In my opinion, the greatest rock frontman of all time, over Mick Jagger, over Bon Jovi, over Axl Rose, over Jim Morrison, any of them, Freddie Mercury. Queen is super good, Frankie. Yes, I agree. I mean, all these bands are amazing, obviously, for them to be in the top 20 here. And yeah, Queen, you like Queen? They're the best. I agree. If I had to pick my favorite band on here, I'd probably have to still say Kiss. But, I mean, Journey, the Beatles, the Doors, I love them all. But Queen, certainly up there. But this isn't about Queen. This is about Freddie Mercury, the best rock frontman. And Queen had the best rock frontman. Hence the reason why they may be one of the greatest, if not the greatest band of all time. Anyway, that pretty much wraps up this session. I got a few minutes left. I just want to let you know, though, before I go, and I'm going to open up if there's any questions just before I go, but I'm going to be doing this every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on TikTok live. Sorry, did I say Thursday? Every Tuesday, if I said Thursday. Every Tuesday at 8 p.m. I will be going live with a different topic. Next week, it's going to be the greatest divas of all time. Will it be, who's the greatest diva of all time? Is it Madonna? Is it Beyonce? Is it Taylor Swift? Is it Aretha Franklin? Diana Ross? Who's the greatest diva of all time? Well, we'll find out next week. And also, keep in mind, I'm pretty much all over social media, so you can find DJ Ray's music on pretty much every social media platform you can think of. TikTok, X, Facebook, YouTube, Reddit, Instagram. So look for DJ Ray's music, and if you want to check out my website, it's a pretty cool website. Every video I've ever posted is on there, and it's djraysmusic.com. So that's about it for this episode. Does anyone have any thoughts on who their favorite rock frontman is of all time? I've got, somebody said Eddie Vedder. Who is that? So we had Eddie Vedder. We had some agreement with me on Freddie Mercury. You sold some Queen CDs the other day on eBay. What'd you get for them? How many did you sell? I'm not belting out a song. No, Nana. I think I would lose everybody in the room. Singing's not my thing. I like to hear people sing. So, Eagles, yeah. Well, Eagles had a lot of singers, so it's kind of really hard to just pick Joe Walsh or Glenn Frey or I can't ever think of Don. Mind blank. Don Henley. All of them were great singers for sure, but it's kind of hard to pick one of them because it was a band full of singers and nobody really outshined it. I mean, it was out of Don Henley or Glenn Frey, you know, but I think people are, but, so you say Eagles. Which singer on the Eagles did you like? Oh, just as a band, okay. You ever kissed a dude? No, I haven't. A lot of people joining, that's great. So, like I said, please be sure and check me out next Tuesday, 8 p.m. right here, same bat time, same bat channel for the greatest diva of all time. We're going to figure out who the greatest diva is. I do research on this, guys, too, and not just off the top of my head. So, you know, although it's not official, it's just my opinion. Keep that in mind. There is some research and thought that goes into these picks. So if there's nothing else, I'm going to log off now, and I appreciate everybody coming out. Once again, check out djraysmusic.com or check out DJ Ray's Music on any social media platform pretty much, and you can find what I'm doing on a daily basis. My daily posts, Heaven and Earth posts, and my chart topper posts are very cool. I think you'd enjoy them. And yeah, I guess we'll see you next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Thank you. Enjoy them. And yeah, I guess we'll see you next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Thank you.